Let's go!
I'm worried about doing the best I can to help LSU win a national championship.
LSU fans, Garrett Nussmeier, and this run game, we did a deep dive on counter, and today we're going to talk about this sexy play. Yes, so it's very important to watch our last practice breakdown with counter. I do believe LSU is going to try to make this their base rushing scheme. What makes counter really spicy, in particular at the college level, are the variations of counter, okay? So we broke down basic counter run plays where you're down blocking here and you're pulling guys, and normally this would just be a handoff here to the left. But no, this is actually a pitch option here to the right. Because these pullers are going from right to left, it freezes the play side linebacker. And the good thing about running counter this way is, yes, they are thinking that this is going to be a run to the left. But these types of misdirection plays are actually cheat codes because none of these players really need to execute their blocks for this play to work. And we just simply didn't have that in our rushing attack. So you'll see that everybody thought that this was just going to be a simple handoff to the left, how you run counter, but instead it's a pitch away. And you'll see that there wasn't a single offensive lineman that needed to execute their block. So now we get to the actual pitch, and you'll see the end bit down on the QB, and there you go. It's off to the races. You have to be able to run basic counter from the get-go, or else defenses really aren't going to respect this. So now this is where things get very intricate. Like, this is indeed very exotic, okay? First off, I know I've been critical of DJ Chester as a center, but the dude is an absolute master at just snapping the football. I mean, they are always dead on accurate. So what we're doing here is we are showing counter GY to the right side, okay? But we are actually play action faking this to the left. So linebackers are going to think that we're actually running something to the right side, play action fake to the left, and a play that we've run a lot and will continue to run are split zone throws into the flat, right? We have fed families with Mason Taylor over the years with Jaden Daniels, but instead of throwing it here, it's actually a shovel right here, okay? It's a lot of moving parts, but that's what we're trying to do, okay? Let's get simple, deceptive plays where the play design itself is what's blocking the play. Now, right there, that was just a basic counter GT to the right side. So you have to be able to get good at running that in order for you to get good at running the different variations of it. And it takes a lot, and I mean a lot of reps, okay? But like we said in the last video, and I won't go too deep on it here, they just got to get good at some different type of run, okay? You got a little RPO action right there with Aaron Anderson. But the good thing about pullers, in particular if Braylon Moore does indeed start for this team, I do think when you have pullers on your offensive line, or you're running a lot of schemes like counter that involve pullers, you can get away with not being the absolute biggest offensive line, which LSU isn't next season. So we'll see what happens. Good throw right there to Chris Hilton. Now, what I want to do is talk a little bit about the 11-on-11 portion. I was not there, but the media was able to watch it. First thing is, this was said to me repeatedly. It was very windy. As you can see, Michael Van Buren throwing this football to Kyle Parker. And they eventually did move the practice inside. I do know Garrett Nussmeier had a run, which is very encouraging there. But I also read, and this to me is fascinating here, that DJ Pickett actually really stood out defensively. So that's about all I will go. I think it's hard to talk about like a scrimmage during this portion. We'll do it on our next live stream. So obviously this video is being released on a Sunday. We'll talk about it tonight if you're watching this the day of the upload. So once again, second team offensive line. I think you know them by now if you watched it. Two true freshmen right here, Solomon Thomas out of Florida, and then, of course, Carius Kern, Braylon Moore, who we just mentioned, if he does indeed start. You have Cohen Eccles right here and Ethan Callaway. This is a very young offensive line. Year one, year two, very experienced center here. Obviously, a missed throw there to Destin Hill. But we still have our Patreon breakdown of Michael Van Buren up, and we got to say it every single time. You will indeed get a Joe Burrow card in the mail if you sign up today, and that was a counter variation once again actually that was just a basic counter in the background there with Caleb Jackson. Now we get to the second team group. They don't have enough offensive linemen to field a full five, and then of course you see Harlem freaking Berry. So excited to see what he's able to do next season. Or should I say this season? We are in 2025. That looked like a bobble right there from Juwan Johnson, but that ball did indeed roll back to him. So it wasn't a good snap. You know, there's been much discussion about Juwan Johnson, the quarterback. They do switch him. I do think this is notable. He's not wearing the red jersey anymore, so he's not wearing the no-contact uniform. Take that for what it's worth. But, you know, I want to get back to Pickett, talk a little bit about DJ. That's my DJ. It's just been a buzz, okay? Normally, especially considering the recruiting services have gotten better at picking out who the best players are, if that is indeed the case, the top 10 national 5-stars are normally studs. And because the services have gotten even better and more pinpoint accurate, look at last year's Ohio State team. They had, I think it was like 10 top 10 national players on their team. And think about that. There's only 50 of those guys in existence every year. It matters. Those are real needle movers. And this is a perfect transition to this tight end room, okay? No Mason Taylor. No more Mason. Alex Atkins, who we've talked about repeatedly, okay? Whew. Are you concerned about that tight end room at all? Let me know. And then in the background, you see this wide receiver room. Who will emerge? I do like the fact that this wide receiver room is ambiguous. Last year, you know, there was just so much hype surrounding Kyron Lacey, and then obviously the year before we had a good idea who the bona fide studs would be. So, man, it's fascinating, to say the least. And then, you know, we've not spent as much time talking about the defense. We're just kind of going in order of this practice footage via Mike Scarborough, Preston Guy, and the crew at Tiger Bait. Shout out to them. But you see in the background here, once again, only the good coaches do this. If you're a defensive line coach, you're a good coach. If you do indeed use this instead of going hut, okay? It is one of my biggest pet peeves. You've got to have the ball on the stick. As many of you know, you go into a gas station in Louisiana. If the food ain't on a stick, it's probably not that good. And that's why you do it, all right? You think as a player that he's just going to just snap it on hut and watch both of them jump off sides, all right? That's the good benefit of doing this. Everything comes down to a millisecond, and every millisecond counts. So your first team, in theory, defensive line, this is the transfer from Nebraska, Jamari Butler, who we've already done a breakdown on. Then you have, obviously, former PHL guest Gabriel Relaford, who broke one of my microphones. He didn't quite break it. If you watch the interview that we did with them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then you get to Patrick Payton. I mean, just look at this guy. Look at this guy. Single digit defensive end. You've got to be a stud if you're rocking this. But he just looks like an NFL defensive end. We've already done a breakdown on him, and we've already done a breakdown on Jack Pyburn. All right. So Patrick Payton is the best defensive end I have ever seen when it comes to batting down passes at the line of scrimmage.